Hello, this is Jeff from the future. This episode was recorded in 2020 as part of an original attempt at a music review podcast. The original idea was to discuss new music as it was being released, but 2020 being what it was, brought quite a few album postponements and other complications. So this series continued through 2020 and into 2021. We are now here in 2022 at the time I am recording this. So what you are about to listen to is not the Sound Judgment podcast, but an early iteration. Also, being that it was recorded more than 2 years ago now, some of our thoughts and opinions may have changed, considering that we are, in fact, people who are continuously trying to learn and better ourselves. Enjoy the show. We kind of started getting into something that I would love to dig in, because looking at the Scorpions' discography really made me think a lot about this.
Is it that people should listen to Phenomenon by UFO?
That's not what I was going to get at, but we can talk about that sometime. No, I was going to get into, and I forget exactly how we got into talking about this, but I brought up when we went to go see Alice Cooper, how he mentioned, not see him live, but see him speak at a convention. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah.
He talked about, when you are a band that has hits, you need to perform those hits live. That's why people are going. So, I fully imagine if you were to go see the Scorpions perform live, I don't know what their whole set list would be, but they're going to play Wind of Change, Rock You Like a Hurricane, The Zoo, Big City Nights, Rhythm of Love. They're going to play these hit songs. And I imagine they probably don't touch anything off of their first 5 albums, the albums that feature Uli John Roth or Michael Schenker. I don't think they play any of those live these days. They're just so far gone. But that really got me thinking, and I want to I want your thoughts on this. There are definitely exceptions to this rule of not playing your hit songs. And the way I look at it is, one of the exceptions is if your back catalog is so large and so full of, maybe not hits, but fan favorites at least, you obviously can't play them all. So, because I already mentioned it, I've seen Rush live. I saw them twice. I saw them twice on the same tour. They happened to come to Pittsburgh at the beginning and then again at the end of the tour. They did not play the same set both times I saw them. My introduction to the band Rush was the song The Trees. I forget if they played it the first or second time I saw them, but they did not play it both times. I think they did play a handful of songs both times, but you get the idea. Because they can only play for so long. They can't play all of their fan favorites. So what do you think? When do you think are good times for exceptions to this? Because I can think of a couple others. They're just alright, I get it. You're not going to play all of your hits. And why? I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
Obviously, a really obvious one, I think, is when you just have too many hits. Metallica is a really good example of this. It is not every show that you will see them play Master of Puppets or Enter Sandman. There are some songs where it's just despite the fact that this is a huge song, it didn't make the cut for something a little bit more obscure.
Do they really not play Enter Sandman at every show? I'm actually surprised if they don't.
Yeah, there are shows where they have not played Enter Sandman.
Interesting. I genuinely, because maybe I'm wrong. I in my mind that's their biggest song.
It is.
Maybe nothing else matters.
By a huge margin, played at most shows.
Oh, I'm sure.
But yeah, you can absolutely go find shows where they did not play Enter Sandman.
Huh.
Just as an example, in fact, I'm looking at their 2019. They played 42 shows.
Yeah.
41 had Enter Sandman, so that means one show Enter Sandman was not played.
Oh, that's weird. Interesting.
Yeah. 41 they played 41 they played Nothing Else Matters. The only one that they played every night was Master of Puppets and For Whom the Bell Tolls.
Now, wouldn't you be pissed if you were, like, a casual fan who really kind of all you wanted to see was 3 songs and they didn't play Enter Sandman?
I'm gonna be bold here, Jeff, and say that if you are the kind of person that paid $100 to be in the nosebleeds for Metallica to see Enter Sandman, then you might have some issues you need to see a counselor about.
Well, okay, valid point. Although what I'm kind of imagining is,
I could see someone being pissed if it was like a "I dragged my wife along" situation.
That's what I was just going to say.
Hear.
I could imagine people bringing like a significant other or a friend who's like not super into it, and they don't play like the 1 or 2 songs they know. I realize that's probably few and far between, but it is just like a thing that I was thinking about.
But and then I think that also they have, I mean, just the Black Album in general. If you play 2 songs from it, then someone's going to know the songs, I think. I'm sure that even at the show that they didn't play Enter Sandman, they still, I mean, obviously they still got Master of Puppets and For Whom the Bell Tolls. I would be surprised if it was like Nothing Else Matters and Enter Sandman were both not played on the same set list. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So another example that I thought of, because I think you explained this to me. I mean, if anyone did, it would have been you. I believe this is a thing. Iron Maiden. Now, again, Iron Maiden is the one that just has such a large back catalog, and they have so many fan favorites. Which I think I want to make a point of stating. When I say fan favorites, I'm thinking of that as different than hits. So, Iron Maiden do not really have hits, at least not in the US. Not in the same way that Metallica did. You know, Enter Sandman and Nothing Else Matters were hits. So I think, in my mind, the way I look at it is like, there is a certain point where I think you kind of should play your hits, fan favorites, which is probably most of a band's set list. I'm a little I'm much more like hit and miss on whether you have to play them all or not, because you obviously can't if you have so many albums.
Well, okay. I'm gonna set you up now.
Okay, go for it.
What's Iron Maiden's biggest hit?
See, that's okay. So I'm not an Iron Maiden fan. So in my mind, I'm probably totally wrong here. It's Run to the Hills.
Iron Maiden's biggest charting hit is Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter, which I don't think they've ever played live.
Really?
Iron Maiden's highest charting hit is Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter.
Huh. Interesting.
That is the only one that has gone number 1.
Interesting.
In the UK.
Interesting. But see, that's actually also surprising me, is the fact that they've only had one number 1 hit. But this is also going to, like, people who go see Iron Maiden, even though they sell out arenas around the world, they are Iron Maiden fans. This is not the same as what I mentioned before, David Bowie performing concerts and not performing any of his hits. When you are someone like David Bowie who has pop hits, like, you have quote-unquote fans who are casual fans. They like the songs they've heard on the radio. You better play those damn songs. Iron Maiden has a giant fan base who are not that. I don't think many people go see Iron Maiden who are like me, who own a greatest hits album and just sort of were like, I don't know, this is cool. Or the fans like me who went to go see them didn't really care what they played. It was just to go just to go experience it.
So yeah, and to be fair, well, there were a lot of people who were upset about that tour that we saw because they didn't play Run to the Hills, and I mean, which to me, I thought was a little ridiculous, considering like that was still a really solid set list. He still got the Trooper, Number of the Beast, and Fear of the Dark.
I was gonna say, I believe they played Fear of the Dark, the Trooper. Yeah, I believe so, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, like it like the set list was still nothing to be upset about.
See, and that's exactly a case of
people like to complain.
That's exactly a case of like they can't play everything. That would be like the one time that would be like if I were genuinely mad at Rush for not playing The Trees the one time I saw them. they have so many other songs that people want to see, and you have to appease as many people as possible. Which I think is kind of also making me think of just, there is a certain kind of fan base, and you have to know your fan base to know what songs people might want to hear, to know what songs people might be tired of hearing. Let's face it, there are touring artists who have such a dedicated fan base that they know most of the people in the audience don't necessarily want to hear their quote-unquote biggest songs anymore. But that's a very specific type of artist who does this.
And I want to throw out credit to Iron Maiden, Metallica, and Alice Cooper for being able to do set lists where they satisfy the casual fan while still throwing in some stuff in there that could be considered deep cuts.
Well, I mean, I think that's where we started with this last time, is talking about Alice Cooper and how great he is at doing that. The man will always play No More Mr. Nice Guy and School's Out. But
my mind is still blown from Roses on White Lace last time.
Exactly. But the man is not afraid to go, you know what my real die-hard fans might dig? Is if I play this song for the first time in 20 years, which is really, really cool for the people who realize the craziness of that. And for the people who are there more casually, I can't imagine anyone's really complaining, If
I gotta say, last time I saw Iron Maiden, they did The Klansman and they did Sign of the Cross. That's The Klansman with a C, by the way.
Okay.
He actually went out of his way to make a note that it wasn't the American Klan.
Are you
live.
serious?
Yeah, because that's what you gotta do in this country these days, I guess. Anyway.
I don't know either of these songs, so it's fine.
Well, it's about the Scottish clans.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
But those two are songs that were done with Blaze Bayley originally, but Bruce did them live on the Rock in Rio DVD, which is an incredible show if you haven't heard it.
No, I think
they are two songs that Bruce just does so fucking well.
Okay, yeah, I can get that.
And then Metallica, also when I saw them, they pulled out some not super deep cuts, but pleasant surprises.
Some unexpected ones, yeah.
Yeah.
So that kind of got me. This whole thing got me thinking. Again, I don't really have. I'm not going anywhere in particular with this topic. It's just a topic that I've been mulling over for a few days now.
No, this is fine. This can be. I'll do this like we did our Dad Rock, Shock Doc.
Whatever you call that. So another example, because I feel like we're going to keep referring to the same handful of bands all the time for various reasons. The Mountain Goats.
Yeah.
The man has a fairly extensive discography, and there are definitely the songs that made him more popular. There's the songs that are more accessible, that there are more people who enjoy. As we've said before, there are probably more fans of his album, The Sunset Tree, than any other album he's recorded. Maybe one of his newest ones has gotten that kind of popularity. I don't really know. But I also know that thanks to other external factors, like other people with large fan bases recommending the album The Sunset Tree, there's a large group of people who that's what they know. Obviously, the Mountain Goats are always going to play, this year. At least they will for a while, as long as that is still a song that they're identified with.
Well, now they do. When I first started seeing the Mountain Goats, it was rare that you got this year. They didn't play it the first time I saw them,
which was when,
and then 2012. That's what I'm saying. He's gotten better at doing set lists that appeal to everyone. I think. Well, sorry, it was 2013. But then the second time I saw them, he did do this year. But he didn't do No Children.
Oh, interesting.
Which is probably one of his other big hits.
Another big.
And then the third time, and I am cheating by looking at Setlist, by the way. I don't know this off the top of my head.
You're totally fine.
But then the third time he did This Year in Best Ever Death Metal Band, but he did not do No Children. So it was, for a while, he did not do every hit. It was you might get one or two of the better known songs, but you probably weren't going to get the 4 or 5 that you would probably know going into the Mountain Goats.
Interesting. But see, okay, but the reason I brought him up
the 4 or 5 first exposure songs, I'll call them.
Yeah, but the reason I brought him up is because among fans, he pretty famously hates performing one of another fan favorite song, "Going to Georgia."
Oh yeah,
and he does.
But he'll do it if you have enough
well,
money.
There's a video.
That?
There's a video. Yeah, there's that video of him. Someone in the audience requests the song and says, "What? Like, I'll give you $50 if you play it," or something like that.
Yeah,
and he does it.
Yeah,
but he does not like performing a song called "Going to Georgia" because he wrote the song when he was significantly younger. His view of the world was very different, and he does not agree with the statement the song is making anymore. And I can completely respect that, even though it is still a fan favorite. I approve of his reasoning for not playing that song. But on that same token,
that was the sound of the token.
But the band Warrant, fronted, created by a man named Yanni Lane.
Yeah.
They have their one big hit, Cherry Pie. Yanni Lane, do you know the story of Yanni Lane? Okay.
Kinda.
Okay, so you don't... If it didn't click with you immediately. So, Yanni Lane hated the fact that he wrote that song. That song tortured him. It is... You could almost make a direct comparison to his hatred of that song to him killing himself by drinking himself to death over that song. There's multiple interviews of him just like regretting writing that song. So I'm a little torn here because obviously I don't like that that's what happened to the man. I actually really enjoy Warrant. Outside of Cherry Pie, I think they were a really fun band, and I think he was brilliant and incredible at what he did for the genre. But you know, for how much he hated that song, I can completely understand why he would not want to perform it anymore. He was embarrassed by that song. So I'm torn, because part of me wants to say, like, no, this is your hit song, and it was a hit. Like, you have casual fans who are coming to see one song. You sure as hell better play it.
Yeah, that is the only thing I know about Warrant.
Oh, you're honestly missing out. But that's a whole other story.
I can believe that.
Not that they're amazing,
because
but like they're super fun.
I feel the same way. Cherry Pie makes me want to drink myself to death. So I can at least assume that the rest of his music is more in line with something I would want to listen to if he feels the same way about Cherry Pie as I do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's honestly like it's frustrating.
Here's the thing. As much as I hate like a lot of like the hair metal anthems, a lot of these bands put out better music that fewer people know about.
Yes.
The first two Def Leppard albums are really actually quite good.
Well, the thing about Def Leppard, and that's a whole other topic that I could do sometime, is, I mean, they blatantly changed their style at one point. You know, they were flat out, they were part of the new wave of British heavy metal. And then they completely abandoned that for popularity. Like, if you want to define sellout, they're one of my examples. That being said, I also love Def Leppard. I actually prefer their hair metal days to their new wave of British heavy metal days. But they
and
sold
Motley
out.
Crue has some stuff that wouldn't be bad if Vince Neil wasn't a murderer.
Also, if Vince Neil just like wasn't bad, but yeah, that too. But I mean, it's like I'm so torn because going back to Cherry Pie real quick, part of me wants to say, like, his hatred of that song should allow him to not have to perform it anymore. But then there's a certain point where I would have to say, like, you know what? If you hate it this much and it's going to ruin you, you need to end this project. And if you want to start a new project and cover some of your own other songs, you can. But if people are buying tickets to go see Warrant, they are buying tickets to go see Cherry Pie.
Right.
But Hold on, you mentioned someone else a second ago. What other band did you just mention? Oh, Motley Crue. Motley Crue is another example for me. I have seen them live a few times, regrettably. One of the times I saw them, they did another one of the... it was another one of the situations where I can forgive them for not playing all of their hits. And that was they were doing an album in its entirety, and then some. So they played the album Dr. Feelgood in its entirety, and then played a handful more songs. If you are commemorating an album, obviously even the biggest hit albums have songs that most people are going to consider filler. But if they want to play the album in its entirety, they are making that sacrifice of, we're going to play some of these quote-unquote filler songs for the sake of playing the full album. So I'm sorry if we're not going to play all of our big hits, but you should know going into the concert what you're getting into. I'm hoping it's advertised as a full album tour. I don't remember if when I saw them do Dr. Feelgood, I knew that that's what I was getting into. I also didn't really care. I believe it was like one of their festivals. And it was the first time I saw them too. So it was just like, all right, I'm going to go see Motley Crue because I need to go see Motley Crue at some point. Again, now
you're not big on full album shows, are you?
I hate full album shows, but I hate them for that exact reason. I hate them because there are very few albums I consider flawless enough that I want to hear the whole album. I'm not an album listener, so why would I want to see one live?
Okay. How many have you seen? How many full album tours have you seen?
I'm sure I've seen a handful, but it's almost entirely been like Motley Crue, where it's just like, I want to see the band.
You would have seen them anyway.
But I'm not super worried about what they play. They're going to play a handful of songs I like, a handful of songs I don't like. This isn't like I went to go see a band. Oh my god, I'm really excited to go see this band. Too bad they're playing a full album and I'm not, seeing all the songs I want to hear.
Yeah.
It's like I really love the band Poison. I have seen them live an embarrassing amount of times. I will not give a number. But every time I've seen them, they've probably played pretty close to the same set list. They are the epitome of, they know who their audience is. They know that their fans are people who want to go see their hits. The vast majority of their fans want to go see their hits. Even some of their really big fans are totally content with just seeing their hit songs. If I went to go see Poison again, and they played any of their albums in full, and that meant sacrificing some of their hits, I think I'd be a little annoyed. I think most of the audience would be a little annoyed. So I think a lot of this just comes down to, you have to know what and who you are, and you have to know your audience.
Yeah, and then there's some cases where it's just, don't expect anything. To just like the recent Mr. Bungle reunion. Yeah, it's just best not to have expectations with Mike Patton because he's fucking insane, and he decided to play his high school death metal demo in its entirety.
You know what? Now that you mention it, that's actually what really started making me think about this topic so much, was the night you were talking about that. But that's, I think, another exception. But again, this is also I think the fans have to know the artist they're seeing.
I think they I mean, on the other hand, they also advertised it as the whatever the fuck the demo is called, the Return of the Easter Bunny or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, tour. But let's face it, if people are going to go see Mr. Bungle, these are not casual. There's no such thing as a casual Mr. Bungle fan. If you're going to see Mr. Bungle, you know that we're talking with a group of
I really
men who
hope there was
insane.
one dude in the audience when are they going to play Carousel?
Well, okay. I mean, they're legit. I mean, never say never kind of thing. I'm sure there are some people who fit that demographic, but that's not really a thing. I mean, that's we have taken numerous multi-hour drives to go see Michael Graves perform in a tiny little bar. So we're talking about going to see a guy who was moderately famous 20-some years ago as the frontman of the band The Misfits. But this is him touring as a solo artist, mostly doing solo acoustic shows in a bar. If you are the kind of person going to this type of show, you know that you're not necessarily going to get quote-unquote the hits. You're going to get some of them. You're going to get them screwing around. You're going to get random covers of things. Anytime you see a show in this format, that's what you're going to get.
Right. Yeah.
Even,
there comes a certain amount of you got to know the artist that you're seeing as well.
Because this isn't a big tour with a guy who had big hits. This is a guy who at one point fronted a punk band, now doing solo acoustic indie rock. Like, you need to know what you're getting into too. But also, there's no one in this audience. Well, there was that one time there was that drunk guy who kept yelling for Misfits songs.
Play Skulls!
Yeah, that guy. But no one really in these audiences is going in expecting to hear a bunch of hits. They're going to see the guy. You're going for the specific performance for whatever it is worth. And if that involves him being too stoned or drunk to remember the lyrics to a song, you know going in that that's what you're going to get.
Yeah.
So I think this is another one of the exceptions of, like, the context of the concert. Again.
And Dax Riggs was one of my favorites, and he fucking didn't play one song from Acid Bath, no matter how much people yelled.
Well, but again, like, I think that's people going in with the wrong expectation. Like, you're not going to go...
Oh, yeah.
You're not seeing
No,
Acid
he
Bath.
hasn't... It's one of those things where, like, as something of a fan, I'm aware of the fact that he hasn't played an Acid Bath song since the bassist died. Like, the band died with that fellow, for more or less. I think they tried to, like do a few more shows, but, like, they just didn't keep it together. But, and then I think he brought the song Dead Girl over to the next band, and then after that, it was done. Like, he hasn't played those songs since I think the last one was like Dead Girl in like 2000.
Yeah.
But he's doing having a lot of fun with his originals and his old folk songs, and I had a blast seeing him. But I think that the one girl who kept screaming "Play Dead Girl" may have pissed him off, and he didn't meet the audience that night, because he's pretty well known for meeting the audience after.
Oh, wow. Okay, way to go, girl.
But, like, after every song, there was this drunk girl like, "Play Dead Girl!"
Yeah, and that's just... I mean, that's an individual person being awful. Which, unfortunately, also is a thing that happens. And unfortunately, when you are that level of popularity, and you're playing in venues small enough that that person gets noticed, that's just a thing that unfortunately happens. Much different than, like, when you are a huge artist and those people, like, yeah, there's going to be people who do that, but they're few and far between.
They're up in the nosebleeds, and no one cares.
And you're in a giant crowd anyway. It's inevitable. It's always a shame when you have 200 people in an audience, because, yeah, that one drunk person can ruin the show for everybody.
Oh, this was like a dive bar.
Well, I was going to say even fewer. This is 50 people or whatever.
Yeah, this is Club Cafe, actually.
Oh God, okay, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, literally.
Where the stage is a stair.
Yeah, it's a foot off the ground, maybe. But yeah, I think, there are definitely exceptions to this, but, there are times where I think, I'm sorry, like, you are an artist, or you are still performing with a certain band, and you had a huge song, or you had huge songs, and yes, this is your livelihood, you have to suck it up and play your hits, because that's what people are here to see. And then there are certain exceptions where, well, all the ones we've listed, whether you have too big of a back catalog, or maybe it's a different project and people are going to see... I will never understand this. Let's say... No, I know he does it well, but, like, let's say you go see David Lee Roth. Not Van Halen, David Lee Roth. I realize David Lee Roth does perform at least some of the big Van Halen songs. But I don't agree that he has to. I would say if he didn't want to, he can play his own material and ignore Van Halen's discography that he was part of.
Yeah, I think that's one of the liberties you get as going out as a solo project.
So how do you feel about, like, let's say the bands who replace a lead singer? Is the new lead singer required to perform the old hits? Was Sammy Hagar, when he replaced David Lee Roth, was he required to go out on stage and play Ain't Talking About Love? Or
I think in that case, like, at first you have to, because that's what you have. Like, you can't just only play the new album, you know. I mean, I can't think of any band where that's not the case, honestly.
Well, I mean, I was honestly just wondering. I mean, because I
mean, you know, you listen to the Black Sabbath with Dio live albums. He's still doing Iron Man and Black Sabbath and Paranoid.
Yeah.
Even when Bruce Dickinson, like, to this day, he plays a couple songs off of the first two Iron Maiden albums per show. Usually, Iron Maiden is still a staple. That's when Eddie comes out and they do the big stage show. I mean, I'm trying to think of a band that replaced their singer and then dropped their... Unless it was the case where, like, the next singer was so popular that they blew everything that they did before that out of the water. Like Anthrax had 2 albums before Joey Belladonna joined, but they didn't get a hit until Joey Belladonna joined.
Yeah.
So it never really mattered.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a band that had a hit that they replaced their singer and they dropped that hit. And I can't think of anything.
I can't think of any. I was just genuinely curious as to, like, what your thought was on this, because I
think the song is, unless it's one of those cases where the lead singer, like, wrote the song front to back and, like, owns all the rights. I normally think of the song as the product of the band.
I was gonna say, and to me, so it's like, you know, when Sammy Hagar took over for Van Halen,
you're associating that song with the title of the band, not necessarily the singer.
The band chose to keep that band name, so you are now, like, you are making the decision to, like, you have to keep doing this.
You're carrying that baggage with you.
Yeah, whether you like it or not. But I do not agree that, you know, when an artist breaks off, I do not agree. I do not think they need to do the old band songs. Now, if they want to, obviously, I mean, if that's your moneymaker, like, then obviously, and you're able to do it. I am positive there are people who went to go see David Lee Roth as a solo artist just because they wanted to hear Running with the Devil. You know, and I'm...
Hot take. I would love to see Bruce Dickinson do a solo show. I would get mad if he did an Iron Maiden song.
So, what's the difference? Is it because Iron Maiden is still a thing you can go see? Like, what makes that different to you?
That might be it, but I also just think the quality of his solo work is at a level that I don't think he needs to do an Iron Maiden cover to appease anyone. I just think his solo work is so fucking good.
And, you know,
I would be sitting there thinking, like, if he did, like, a deep cut Iron Maiden song, that might be different. But if he did like The Trooper or something, I'd be sitting there thinking, I have heard The Trooper live. I've seen Iron Maiden 5 times. I've heard The Trooper 5 times. I don't need to hear this song live again. I would rather you do something from your solo work or, like, a deep cut.
Yeah, I can totally get that. But again, I think this goes down to, like, I get the feeling you are fairly par for the course among Bruce Dickinson fans. I imagine that's not really a hot take among that fan base.
I mean, that's fair. But I'm just kind of checking out some of his solo set lists and just, like, I mean, obviously it's been quite a while since he did one, but he did, like, 2 Minutes to Midnight on all of his live shows, and I'd be like, I don't want, and he did Run to the Hills a couple times, and I that's not what I want to hear. Like, I would rather hear any number of songs that aren't on this set list.
Yeah, I can
if
get
I'm being
that.
quite honest.
So, I mean, the example that I think of, because it's the example that I've personally seen, it's the first one I think of here, is Sebastian Bach from Skid Row. He has not been in the band Skid Row for quite a while. He does perform as a solo artist, and as a solo artist, he does perform his big songs from the Skid Row era. I don't mind that, because having also seen a more modern iteration of Skid Row, I wanted to hear Sebastian Bach sing some of these songs. And there is no way to do that. So if his band doing it, like, that's totally fine by me. But also I think it's a matter of, like, they were hits, and I think it's kind of expected. Because his solo career isn't, even among Sebastian Bach fans, I think most people would, like, still, it's like, oh yeah, I love his stuff with Skid Row, and I love his solo albums. I don't think he really stands on his own as a solo artist nearly as well. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm in the minority here of fans, I don't know. So I kind of wonder, like, what came first? Did he always perform some Skid Row songs so he could get old fans to show up? Or, like, did he realize old fans were showing up, so he goes, oh crap, I should probably do these old songs? I don't really know. I don't think it's a requirement, though. Like, I would not be mad at him if he didn't do them. I'm glad he does.
Yeah, and I think that's also just, this is a situation of, I think Bruce Dickinson's solo stuff is different enough from Iron Maiden that it I don't know how I'm trying to put this, but it stands on its own in a way.
Okay, yeah, I get it.
I think his stuff, and also, like, that if you're seeing him solo, I think you're watching it with, like, a certain a more specific crowd than Sebastian Bach, like, which is more of a name that could still draw a casual crowd.
I was gonna say, I wonder if, I mean, I guess there was probably that level of, again, Skid Row had actual hits, so the association might bring in people who are much more casual fans. Where, again, even with Iron Maiden, for as, like, immensely popular as they are, they have a dedicated fan base. You know, they'll bring in thousands of people to a show, and it's thousands of people who are all truly Iron Maiden fans. And I imagine Bruce Dickinson just kind of holds his own weight, so to speak. Anyway, I mean, like I said, I wasn't really going anywhere with this. It was just an interesting thing that I've been mulling around for a little while, and was kind of curious what your thoughts were.